Okay, now we get to talk about. Why are you laughing at me?
Every single time. All right, I'm ready to start. Okay, now it's time.
I quit. My coworker is bullying me. I'd like to file an HR complaint.
Sorry, B. Welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And we're discussing chapter 36 this week, Dragon and Satrap, which is an all Malta chapter.
Yeah. It's been a really long time since we've only had one person's point of view for a full chapter.
That's true.
I think several.
And we're nearing the end of the book, so I'm sure we're going to get a couple of... this is probably going to be rare for the end of the book.
Right.
I would guess. But we're back with her underground, picking up right where we left off in the last chapter, where she was kind of stuck and not moving forward in that collapsed section of the old city, in that building. And she's thinking here that maybe she could just lie here until somebody else did something about it, because she's just not feeling any motivation to go forward or go back at this point.
Right.
As her breathing calmed, the distant music swelled. When she gave it her attention, it seemed clearer. She knew that tune. Surely she had danced to it a long time ago. She heard herself humming softly with it. She opened her eyes and lifted her head. Was there light ahead, or was it a trick of her mind? The pastel lights shifted when she moved her eyes. She crawled on towards the light and the music. And then she ends up going downhill.
Yes. And she is free from the place that she is trapped in.
Yeah. So last chapter we talked about how I didn't think it was Tintaglia necessarily manipulating things. Right. This seems like more of... It doesn't necessarily have to be a direct manipulation.
Right.
But it seems more of like this skill influence is beckoning her forward.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the fact that she's more open to this skill because she is being contacted by Tintaglia is what's drawing her for, like, it makes her able to hear and experience the city the way that she does.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe she's just exceptionally skilled. There's no reason it can't be that, I guess, because we know if we think about the skill road and Fitz walking near it, he could see things and hear things even when he wasn't necessarily on the road, right? Not as well, true. But it was especially bad when he was on the road, which is what happens to Malta. So I'm just wondering if, I don't know, it could be Tintaglia's influence. It also could just be that she has an innate amount of skill that is very high.
So she tumbles down that collapsed section, gets down to relatively solid-ish ground, and continues to creep along, but eventually her hand once again finds the Jidzen strip.
Right. I do want to just mention that there is a note that as she tumbles down the hill, she kind of panics because it reminds her of the coach incident. And I found that really interesting to bring that back up. And I think it gives it more touch of reality of, and kind of gives us the state of mind that Malta is in, where she's a little panicky, not really fully recovered, and still going forward. But as you said, she finds the Jizden strip, which helps light up the area that she's going towards.
As soon as she touched it, the corridor blazed with light. She squeezed her eyes shut, then opened them slowly. She stared down the corridor with wondering eyes. Back at the entrance, the walls had been deteriorated. The friezes faded and worn. Here, the light emanated not only from the strip, but also from decorative swirls in the wall. Gleaming black tiles shone on the floor. The music was louder, and she heard a woman's peal of sudden laughter. And she is kind of thrown into the strong memories now, because she's looking down at herself. She's like, oh, I'm muddy and bedraggled. What would I do if I ran into anybody in this corridor? Malta smiled foolishly. She supposed she could always plead her head injury and pretend her mind was wandering. Considering her actions this evening, perhaps she was out of her mind.
Right.
And she's passing along this corridor, and as we mentioned last chapter, she looked into rooms and didn't see much. This time, the rooms have things in them. Thick rugs on the floors and startling art on the walls. She had never seen such furniture, couches that were tasseled and draped with rich fabrics, chairs she could have curled up and slept in, tables that were more like pedestals. This must be the legendary wealth of the Reyn Wilds. Yet she had been told no one lived in the city. She shrugged. Perhaps that meant they did not eat or sleep here. She pressed on. So she's kind of thinking that people do live here.
Yeah.
People do inhabit this. It's just too well preserved.
Right. Which I think we know as secondary readers is because she is walking in skill memory.
Partially, but I also think that this is one of the more well-preserved areas. This is where they keep the Satrap, as we find out later in the chapter.
True, but you think they wouldn't have already looted the rugs and the art?
I mean, possibly, but I think that's why I said partially
Okay.
skill memory. I think there are still some things here that are giving it shape.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, and as you just said, she has fallen deep into remembering through the skill all these memories that are coming up, and she's kind of living in this time here. At some point, she decided she was not going back the way she had come, no matter what befell her. She could not force herself through that wet, muddy tunnel again. She'd find another way out. So there's a couple things I want to talk about just with that sentence. One, I think this kind of implies once again that she's being drawn forward. And two, yes, there's a little bit of trauma with the carriage tumble down the hill, but
Mhm.
also with that claustrophobia is that Tintaglia leaking into her mind a little bit of get me out of this, coffin that I'm in. Enclosed tight spaces are not my thing anymore. I'm going to do anything except to go back through that tunnel.
Yeah. No, that definitely could be part of it. I think I guess I don't feel like Tintaglia is purposefully putting that feeling in her mind,
Right.
but I think it is definitely exacerbated by the fact that she's kind of linked with Tintaglia and had that traumatic experience, and it's just kind of all accumulating together to be like, oh, I don't like this. I need to go forward.
The music changes to a different tune, and she recognizes this song from one of the songs that played in Reyn's memory when they shared a dream together. In the dream, she had walked with him in a silent city. Then he had brought her to a place where there was music and light and people talking. The music was the same. That was how she knew it. Still, it seemed odd she knew it so well. She felt a distant grinding through her feet, and then the floor stepped sideways underneath her. She clutched at the wall desperately. It trembled under her hand. So there's a little bit of a mini quake there.
Right.
And she kind of, clutches at the wall, and her heart hammers and her head spins, and then the hallway is suddenly full of people. Kind of describe the elderlings that were walking through and how scandalous some of them were dressed because they had skirts with slits all the way up to their waist. And she swayed, blinked and was blind. She had lost the wall. She gave a shriek and then,
At the sudden blackness.
at the sudden blackness, and puts her hand back on the Jidson strip, and suddenly the hall is empty. She had imagined it all. She lifted her free hand to her forehead and touched the injury there. She should not have tried this. It was too much for her. Best to find a way out and go back to her chamber in bed. So she's now kind of afraid that maybe her mind is wandering, and she's, maybe I should go back.
Right. Well, to be fair, she did just witness basically ghosts.
Right, exactly.
After a little earthquake, and she's underground right now. That would be pretty scary.
So she steps out resolutely and trails her fingers along the Jidson strip so it's lit up, but she no longer hesitated at corners or peered into rooms. She hurried through everything and eventually came to a broad corridor with an odd pattern that suggested winged creatures in flight decorating the walls. And eventually she comes to a door with a crowned rooster as an insignia.
Right. Before we get into opening the door, I wanted to quick point out when Malta lets go of the wall, she is in complete blackness. And I feel like that points to the fact that she's in the memories when she's touching the wall, because the Jizzin should still have some slight glow. It shouldn't immediately go out, presumably, right?
I guess, I don't know.
Because it goes from a fully lit hallway to completely black, which to me feels like, it's because it's not actually lighting up. It's not jizzed in, it's the memories lighting up the place.
Maybe.
I don't know. Just a thought.
Interesting. So she comes to this door. There's a big chicken with a crown looking as if it wanted to fight. For such a silly motive, it looked both haughty and threatening. She almost admired it. From beyond the door came the sounds of a party in progress. People were talking and laughing. Music was playing merrily, and she heard the lively slap of the dancers' feet against the floor. She looks down and is like, oh, I might as well be humiliated still and just move on and go through and see what's going on.
Exactly.
So she pushes into the door and steps inside and is plunged into sudden blackness, stumbling forward as the big door gave swiftly and easily at her touch. So this music and the people dancing and the liveliness of it was drawing her to this chamber. She's crying out, help, because it's black inside the room. She can't see anything. The room smells like a stagnant pond. She's crying out, hello. She's kind of crawling now. She did not fall far because she did fall on the steps eventually. She did not stand again and is crawling around and eventually touches something. A rough wooden barrier. Hello, Malta Vestrit, the dragon said to her. So we meet at last. I knew you'd come to me. And actually, we do switch perspectives, which I completely forgot that we do have multiple perspectives in this chapter.
Yeah,
it's a quick one.
Yeah, it's just a quick little look at what's happening to Reyn through Jani's perspective, which is an interesting choice, I guess. Mostly because I kind of don't care about her perspective.
Wow.
Which is a harsh take, I think. But I think I'd be more interested to hear Reyn's point of view, but I guess it'd be mopey and he's drunk. And I don't know. I get why Jani's perspective was chosen instead. But yeah, kind of a little disappointed in it.
Well, last chapter and last episode, I said that, and I brought it up again this episode, that I don't think that Tintaglia led her forward. However, the music and everything directly behind the rooster door implies that she did lead her to that room. So do you think that's the case?
I don't know. I'm really not sold either way, I guess.
I feel like Tintaglia isn't subtle enough for that, really. And if it is Tintaglia, it's slightly out of character for her.
Yeah. It feels possible that through her skilling Malta to come forward, it is opening Malta to the skill in that direction specifically.
Yeah, maybe.
And I guess later in the chapter, we know that Tintaglia can access all of the memories in the room.
Yeah.
So knowing who Malta is, it wouldn't be surprising that she would be leading Malta with sounds of a party.
True.
So I don't know.
I think it's possible.
It's definitely possible. And I don't think it's that out of character because she is a powerful dragon that has the memories of like a billion lives. So I don't know.
Well, as you mentioned, we do jump over to Jani and we interrupt a conversation between her and her son Bendir, Reyn's older brother. And they're talking about Reyn and what other people are saying about him and the trouble that he's getting himself into and his state of mind. Bendir is saying that if someone poisons him, it won't be me. I'm only telling you what people told me. There's something off about him now that people see.
Right.
And Jani is like, don't talk about your brother like that, and is wishing that they could have cut up that log before he got back. But Bendir replies like, yeah, I wasn't expecting him to stay one night and then flee back here. I was expecting him to stay weeks in Bingtown.
Right.
Because that was the plan last time.
Yeah.
Get him out and then cut up the log so Tintaglia didn't have a hold on him anymore.
Right. And obviously there wasn't enough time. And on top of that, he's talking about how now there's not enough time because there's a war going on and that needs to be prioritized. They can't really cut up a wizard wood log into parts at the moment.
Right. Yeah. So she asks where Reyn is right now, and Bendir replies, where he is every night. He's in his room, drinking by himself and talking to himself. Wild words about dragons and Malta, and killing himself. What? She stared at him. His words destroyed the small island of evening peace in her sitting room. That's what Jani heard through the door. It was why she ran to tell me. He keeps saying she'll kill him at his own hands. That Malta will die too, he added unwillingly. Malta? He's angry with Malta? But I thought they made up today. I heard... Jani's voice faltered reluctantly. So, before I move on to the controversy of what they heard, neither of these people are truly listening to those words.
No.
It's very specific. He, meaning Reyn, keeps saying she'll kill him, meaning Reyn, at Reyn's own hands. That Malta will die too. The she is referring to Tintaglia, which Jani and Bendir resolutely believe does not exist. Is no longer alive, and it's imagination of Reyn's, or him slowly going mad with memories.
Right.
So I get why they don't believe that or don't listen to it and just kind of, he's talking about killing himself and maybe killing Malta as well, but I thought they made up. So I can understand from their perspective why that's alarming about his state of mind, because I'm sure they've encountered other Rainwild folk who have drowned in memories and have gotten dangerous, and this might be one of those warning signs.
Right.
But because that's what they're filling in their mind, they just don't take the time to actually listen to him.
Yeah, I think it's really sad because I would think that the difference between drowning in the memories and what is happening to Reyn is that when people drown in the memories, they believe they are the people. At least
we have one example of it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily all the time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So, I mean, I don't know. And even if it's not just taking one person's memories and believing you're that person, I have to believe that the main problem is that they want to just keep going back to the city and live in the way cooler life.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of frustrating to see Reyn is actively fighting this and doesn't seem to want to be a participant in this, which you think would be a marker for drowning in the memories. Because I guess, I don't know, like you said, we only have one example of somebody, of Rapskull, doing this.
And that's fairly unique because that was a specific person's memories.
Right. So,
because he and Taimara specifically just went through those two specific past lovers and their whole life story, right?
Right. So, yeah. So I guess.
It's an example, but we don't know the full story of the symptoms, I guess.
Yeah, I guess we can't really make a full judgment call. But I will say, it seems as though Reyn's father died by his own hand. It wasn't by poison. I think that's...
Where do you get that from?
I think a little bit later, Jani says something about her husband leaving him by himself or something. Like, there's just a really subtle comment. I've underlined it, so when we get there, I'll point it out. I feel like that points to, again, this desperation of being in the city and living those memories instead of real life. Whereas Reyn does not want to be a participant in whatever it is that he's going through.
And he
And
does want to go back to the city really badly.
yeah, I guess. Well, yeah, I guess there's that. So I don't know. It feels like there should be some differences, but we don't know, I guess,
We
enough.
can maybe see the differences because we know what's actually happening. But
True.
for them, somebody who lost a husband, a father directly to this,
Yeah,
they're scared for him, but they don't quite pay attention.
right.
And then they move on to the controversy.
Right. And I mean, to be fair, it would be really hard to differentiate whenever, you've seen people die to this. So,
Yeah, true.
but yes, there is a controversy. And that Bendir provides us with the fact that Reyn was caught with Malta in his lap while he was fondling her.
Yes. Given his other behavior lately, a common scandal like simple lust was almost a relief. They've been through a lot. He thought she would die and blamed himself. It's natural for him to cling to her now. It was a feeble excuse, and Jani knew it. She wondered if Keffria had heard of it yet. Would it change her plans? Why did Reyn have to behave so strangely just now when there were so many other crises to deal with? Yeah, it wasn't just simply comforting or anything like that, or
Yeah,
talking at all.
can't possibly. It's a man and a woman. Something had to have happened. No, I think this is a really good example of why I don't enjoy this Jani passage and my big beef with her. And that's her, I don't know, her inability to hold Reyn accountable, I guess. She's really taken over this whole that's my baby boy and he can do no wrong and mindset, and just she's pushing aside the fact that maybe something's wrong with him. She's pushing aside the fact that he could be drowning in memories. She doesn't like that. He's fine.
You're such an older sibling.
True. Spoken as a true baby of the family. But also here we see it again when she says, like, she knows it's a feeble excuse, but she's going to keep using it anyway, that like, oh, they've been through a lot. We have to be nice to them. And I'm Team Bendir that's like, you treat him like a baby.
Well, I certainly wish he was clinging to her now instead of ranting and raving in his room. Jani Cooper stood abruptly. This isn't good for any of us. I can't talk sense to him tonight if he's drunk, but we'll take the brandy away and insist he sleep. Tomorrow, I'll demand he mend his behavior. You should find some work for him.
This is another big problem. I guess we don't know if Reyn has told them Tintaglia is not letting him sleep. Even if he did, I don't think they'd believe him. But Reyn physically cannot sleep. He's not getting any rest. It doesn't matter if they force him to sleep, he isn't sleeping, which is a little odd because if he's drinking so much that he's drunk every night and then he doesn't wake up still drunk, that indicates that he did in fact get some level of sleep, I would assume. But because, your body breaks down alcohol in your sleep. I mean, it does while you're awake as well, but whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
That's why he drinks, right? He drinks so he passes out.
Right.
And his mind blacks out.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. But I guess the thing is that even if he does sleep, he's still getting, like, you would think.
He doesn't get rest. He sleeps, but he doesn't get rest, and now he fears his dreams, right? Okay. That's kind of what those passages between him and Malta were about, that in his dreams, he is the dragon, right?
Right.
He's on the wings, and he wakes up with no relief from the sleep at all.
Yeah.
So he can still go to sleep, he just dreads it because it's tormenting him.
Well, I was thinking that he's like slowly going insane from the fact that he literally cannot sleep. Because, sleep deprivation drives you crazy. So
it's technically sleep deprivation still if you're not getting benefits.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway.
Yeah, so Bendir's eyes light up. He has another mound in the swamp to investigate. That might be the city again. And Jani's like, I don't think it's wise to send Reyn back to the city. And Bendir's like, what else is he good for?
It's the only thing he's good at.
So they make their way towards Reyn's bed chambers, and it's worse than she had feared. Her heart sank. He couldn't go as his father had gone, talking only to himself. Please, Saw, mother of all, do not be so unfair.
Oh, maybe I misread the passage.
Oh, is that the
Yeah, I
line?
thought it said taking only himself.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
No.
that was why I was like, ooh, that's a really subtle thing to put in there. He couldn't go as his father had gone, taking only himself is how I read it, but it's talking. I just misread.
Yeah, so they're overhearing Reyn through the walls of his bedchambers, his drunken slurring and talking, but they can't quite make out anything right now.
Well, they're 2 catwalks away,
Yes.
and as they get closer, they can make him out.
Reyn's voice rose in a sudden shout. Bendir broke into a run, and Jani hurried after him. The door was suddenly flung open, and Reyn lurches into view, halts, clutching at the doorframe. It was obvious he couldn't stand by himself. Malta! He bellowed into the night. No! Malta, no! Bendir kind of tackles Reyn back into the room because Reyn is staggering out, arms flailing wildly as he reached for a railing and missed. So they're probably scared he was going to jump off the side
Right.
of the catwalk and the entryway there. Reyn seemed incapable of putting up any real resistance, but he still kind of flails about a little bit. And Reyn shuts his eyes and was still all of a sudden. Jani believes he is passed out, and she hastily shuts the door behind her. Let's get him up onto his bed, she said with weary relief. But Reyn was not passed out. All of a sudden, he's crying and says, No, let me up. I have to get to Malta. The dragon has her. She'll take her. I have to rescue Malta. Don't be ridiculous, Jani snapped at her son. It's late at night, and you're in no condition to see or be seen by anyone. Bendir is going to help you to bed, and that's as far as you're going. So Bendir kind of drags him to bed and says, Done, take the brandy, put out the lantern. Reyn, stay here, sleep it off, no more shouting. And Reyn is still desperate.
Right.
He's like, it's Malta. He's like, you're drunk, not that drunk. Bendir pushes him back down as he tries to sit up. The dragon has Malta. She's there for me. She's going to take her. Malta is going to take the dragon? Jani frowned at his words. No! He roared at his frustration. Bendir shoves him back and Reyn swings on him, who easily evades the roundhouse punch and warned him fiercely, Don't try that. I'll knock you silly. Mama! The wail sounded ridiculous coming from a grown man. Malta went to the dragon. He drew a deep breath and then spoke slowly and carefully. The dragon has Malta now instead of me. He lifted both hands and patted his head. The dragon is gone. I don't feel her anymore. Malta made me leave her alone. Or Malta made her leave me alone. That's good, Reyn. Jani tried to be comforting. The dragon is gone. All gone now. Go to sleep. In the morning, I want you to tell me all about it. I have some things to tell you, too. She ignored her elder son's disgusted snort. That's kind of what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Just like, oh yeah, okay, baby him.
Like, oh, well, it's okay. The dragon's all gone. Like, this was a 23-year-old grown man.
Yeah, but if he lifted both of his hands to pat his head, like, dragon gone in Malta now.
And
you're also gonna reply.
Mama.
Yeah, you're gonna reply, it okay, dragon gone.
Yeah, dragon gone. Touche. But still, it's like, ugh, grow up.
So Jani, like, finally, after Reyn is still saying, like, you're not getting it, you're not listening, you're not understanding.
Fair.
I want to go to sleep, but I have to go to her. I have to take the dragon back and make Malta go. She'll die, and it's all my fault. Jani has finally had enough. She's like, you're not making sense. You're drunk. You're tired. There's no dragon, only an old log. Malta's not in danger. She's in her bed, resting. She barely is getting up. And go to sleep. Like, don't worry about this. Bendir is saying never try to reason with a drunk, and Reyn is trying to continue, saying, Mother. He took a deep breath as if to speak. Instead, he sighed. I'm so tired. I haven't slept in so long. But listen. Malta went to the city, to the Rooster Chamber. Go get her. That's all. Please. Please do that. Of course. You go to sleep now. Bendir and I will take care of it. She patted his head and brushed his curly hair back from his pebbled brow. Bendir made a disgusted noise. You treat him like a baby. He gathered up the bottles and went to the door.
Yep.
And he heaved the bottles one by one into the swamp. What a litterer.
Oh, yeah.
But she's worried for him.
She is.
Because at the end here, she's sitting by him, watching his eyes slowly droop, drowned in the memories. No, he wasn't, not her son. This was just the rambling of a drunken man. He was still himself. He saw her. He saw his brother. He didn't talk to ghosts. He was in love with a real live girl. He hadn't drowned, and he wouldn't.
Okay, this part, again, makes me feel like that describes somebody who is trapped in memories and doesn't know who they are anymore.
Right.
So, therefore, again, there's some differences between, which I guess is why Jani's able to be like, well, he's not drowned in memories. This is different. But also not really reliable because she's his mom and doesn't want him to be
Right.
trapped in the memories. But I don't know. It's just frustrating. And it is frustrating to read this from our point of view because we know Reyn is right. Malta is in the Crown Rooster Chamber and she is talking to the dragon, but they just don't listen and they don't believe him. And there's no way she could be there, which, I mean, I guess that's a fair assumption to make, but it's not right. So I don't know. It's frustrating as somebody, rereader or first-time reader, because first-time reader, you still know he's right and they need to help Malta.
Right, exactly.
Although I guess she doesn't really need help right now. She's okay.
Well,
yeah,
she's a 14-year-old girl, as we learn, bargaining with a dragon.
True.
As we jump back into her story. And she is making stipulations, and Tintaglia is like, yeah, definitely. Agree to all of those. Yep, I'll free him. I'll leave Reyn alone. I'll free your father or whatever. As long as you just free me. Perfect, yeah, let's do it. Now release me. But how will I know you will keep your word? Malta cried out in agony. More decisively, she added, you have to give me something. Some sort of sign. I give you my word. The dragon was getting impatient. I need more than that. There was something if she could just remember it. Then she had it. Tell me your name. No. The dragon was adamant. And then Tintaglia tries to say, but when I'm free, I'm going to bring you all these treasures. You know, diamonds from this place, scents and flowers from this place, blah, 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 blah. And Malta's like, no tales, no treasures. I ask only that you will leave Reyn alone and that you will rescue my father. The name of the ship is Vivacia. You have to remember that. You must find the ship, kill the pirates, and rescue him. Yes, just no. Swear it by your name. Say that by your name you swear to rescue Kyle Haven and to leave Reyn Kupris in peace. Say that and I'll do as you say. Tintaglia is starting to get angry here. He's like, you dare to dictate to me? You're a little bug. Deny me and I'll ride your soul to the end of times. You know, I am capable of a lot.
Yeah.
And I can torment you forever.
I can take over your body and make you hurt yourself and others, and you better listen to me or else. And Malta's kind of over it.
A tremor shivered through the chamber, breaking into the dragon's threats. Malta pressed her lips together to keep from crying out. You see, you anger the gods with your demands on me. Do as I tell you, or they will make the whole hill fall on you. And on you also, Malta pointed out relentlessly. I care not what you threaten me with. If you could do such things, you would have forced Reyn to obey you long ago. Say your name, or I do nothing for you. Nothing.
I do want to quickly pause for a little side tangent and say dragons believe in gods, which is really interesting to think about. It is lowercase g, but I think they usually are in this book when talking about the different gods like El, Ida, Sa, and any other little ones that we've come in contact with. But I found it really interesting that a dragon would reference the gods.
Reference, yes. I don't think that proves they believe in gods. Proves that the dragons have knowledge of humans believing in gods.
Okay.
And I feel like that's what Tintaglia is doing, trying to use anything to her advantage to prey on the fear in Malta's head. And if that's of the supernatural or, divine, so be it.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
I choose to believe it means that
they have a deity.
Yeah, the dragons believe in deities.
But if Ida and El are truly a
dragon
and Elderling, why would they worship a dragon and Elderling?
It didn't say Ida and El. It said gods, which could be anybody. So that doesn't mean that that's who they're worshiping. Also, it does feel pertinent that a dragon would worship another dragon. Like, I feel like that tracks. But anyway, Malta, yeah, she's made her demand. Tell me your name or you get nothing. And they sit in silence, and Malta decides she's had enough. She doesn't care anymore, and she goes to walk away.
She cares, but she feels like she's made it. She's done everything that she can, and she's still going to fail. As you mentioned, she turns and starts walking away. This was all she was, a helpless woman with no power in the world. She dropped her hands from the wood and turned away from it. She began to grope her way across the room. She hoped she was going in the right direction. The dragon's voice rang suddenly in the stillness. Tintaglia. My name is Tintaglia. And Malta halted where she stood, breathless with hope. And if you free me, I promise I will leave Reyn Kupris in peace, and I will rescue your father, Kyle Haven. Malta took a deep breath. And she rested her hands on the wood again, bows her head, says, tell me how to free you.
Before we get into this, I just want to make the comment, a little bit cold of Malta to not even ask to rescue her brother, too.
Right? I know.
Like, who cares about Selden? If he dies, he dies.
Wintro?
Wintro.
Who cares about remembering his name even? Wow. Look at you. We forgot about Selden all the time, and he talks for what? 1 page, and all of a sudden he's a character again in your mind?
I guess so.
Character permanence. So the dragon speaks quickly and eagerly. There is a great door in the south wall. The Elderlings created art here, in this chamber. They made living sculptures of my kind from the memory stone. Old men would carve them in this chamber, safe from wind and weather. Then they would die into them, and the sculptures would briefly take on their lives. The door would open, and the simulacra would emerge into the sunlight and fly over the city. They would live a brief time, and then their memories in false life would fade. There is a graveyard of them back in the mountains. The Elderlings thought of it as art. We found it amusing to see ourselves copied in stone, so we tolerated it. None of that means anything to me. Malta's tired of talking.
I kind of love this because it is such a good nod to readers who have read the Fitz trilogy. Yeah. I think it's so good. I know some people start with this book series.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild to me, but to each their own.
Okay, I'm glad that you're reading the books, and I think we've talked about this before, but any way you read this that isn't in publication order is kind of wild to me. Like, some people just read the Fitz trilogies.
Yeah.
They go, Farseer trilogy, Tawny Man, and then the finale, and they skip out on this and the Rainwealth Chronicles, which is 7 books of lore about what is happening to Fitz, basically.
Yeah, why Beloved even cares and wants this.
Yeah, where was Beloved?
Yeah, yeah.
All of that. Why are there suddenly dragons? Why in the last trilogy are these ships that can move and speak becoming dragons? All of that is explained in this book.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I don't know.
Anyways,
let people enjoy their stuff. I won't yuck their yum, but I feel
that's
bad
a little yucky.
Yes. But I do feel a little bad for anybody who started with this series, because they probably are feeling like Malta, like, that means nothing to me. Like, why would I care? But for us, and for even people who are reading this book for the first time, it's exciting because it's like, oh my gosh, there's a touchstone and
some background.
Yeah. And this is something that can relate to the Farseer trilogies and what we just saw happen at the end with Fitz and, well, I guess not to Fitz, but to oh my gosh. Verity. Yeah.
And names are not your strong suit tonight, huh?
No. But yeah, so.
And we get some lore on like how it works in the past. And
yeah, and how it was more of an art form, I guess. Yep. And just one old man?
No, old men would carve them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's multiple, like kind of like a coterie.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting thing to think about as well. And I love the idea that the graveyard is back in the mountains, and we know that that's where
the stone garden,
the stone garden is, that we've seen through the other books. I do just want to ask you a question though. So we know from Rap Skull that the different Elderling cities were just that, different cities. They had different rulers, they had different policies.
There were kingdoms, right? Yes.
Do we think that this is part of the same kingdom and ruling as Kelsingra?
Yes. It's situated on the same river. It's not even probably an hour's flight by a dragon from one city to the next.
Fair. Okay.
So I think they are part of the same, kingdom or faction.
I guess it does take months for the dragon keepers to get to Kelsingra, though.
And sure, but they're sailing on a raft going upstream against the current.
Okay.
And they don't know where they're going.
Fair.
The main proof I have for that is that we hear that these Elderlings settled down where sources of silver were, because that's what they needed. That's what drew dragons there, and that's kind of their whole center. So they controlled the Elderlings of Kelsingra and these cities here controlled this river's silver.
Okay.
They have their own spawning grounds with the beaches in these cities. They have that well of silver in Kelsingra itself and the water in general. Right. So I think the same people would have tried to control the same sources. Otherwise, there would be a lot more evidence of war in between the two, like on the way up to Kelsingra.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I was just wondering because when there's that mention of the statue garden of the cemetery for these carvings, I was thinking that wouldn't really make sense if this is not the same kingdom, because why would they all go to this one place? But I guess it makes more sense that way. So interesting.
Malta doesn't really care about this explanation, even though we do.
True.
But Tintaglia goes on to explain that, it's important, not really important, but it's important to know that there were panels and levers that you could open up the walls to fly out. So that's what you need to do. And Malta's like, well, if it's so easy to do that, why didn't Reyn do it? He wanted to, but he was afraid. Males are timorous creatures at best. They think only to feed and breed. But you and I, young queen, we know there is more. Females must be ruthless to shelter their young and continue the race. Chances must be taken. Males will quiver in the shadow, fearing their own deaths. We know that the only thing to be feared is the end of the race. The words rang oddly in Malta's soul. Almost true, she whispered to herself, but could not sort out the part of it that was false. Eventually, she just says, where are the panels?
Right. And we find out that Tintaglia doesn't know.
Yeah.
I was never in this chamber. What I know from the lives of others. You must find them. I find this really interesting because Malta asks, how do I do that? And Tintaglia says, open yourself up to me and I will open you to the memories in the room. That's what the Elderlings did. They put their little memories of their little tiny lives into these places for them to enjoy later. And we're going to use that. But if Tintaglia can access the memories of the room, why doesn't she know how the panels work? That information is there. We know Malta finds it. So why wouldn't she know? Is it because
she's not looking at the memories? She knows the memories are there, but she floods Malta with all of the memories, not specifically the ones that she needs.
No, yeah.
So that indicates that Tintaglia doesn't know what specific memory she needs. She just knows that the memories are there to be used.
Right.
So I don't think she's ever brought them into herself to relive them or anything like that.
That's what I'm asking more. Yeah, just why wouldn't she? So that she knows how to open it.
She's not a physical being right now.
Fair. And I guess I was wondering if perhaps this is a similar thing to like when Night Eyes and Fitz talk, where there are just certain concepts that don't translate to the different beings.
Could be.
I don't know. Either way, Tintaglia is flooding Malta's memories. But I do want to point out there's a really good scene where Malta realizes the bargain she must make.
Yes.
How do I do this? And she says, I'll open you up to the memories. The memories of the city? It was their conceit to store their memories in the bones of their city. They brush your kind, but you cannot master them at will. I can help you find them. Let me. All the pieces tumbled into place for her. She suddenly grasped what her part of the bargain must be. She took a deep breath. Then she leaned on the wood, pressing her hands, her arms, her breast, her cheek to it. Another breath, as if she poised for a dive. She forbade herself to fear or resist. She spoke with a dry mouth. Drown me in the memories. Dragon did not wait to hear more. I love how dramatic this is. I love, as readers, first-time readers, you wouldn't know what drowning in the memories is.
It's a scary thing.
It is.
Because she's just kind of heard it recently. And
Right.
It's something that Reyn's dad died to. And she found out it's actually a serious thing.
Right. And I kind of feel like this makes me like Malta way more.
She's very courageous.
Yeah. It's very, very courageous. And she
all to
does it.
save Kyle Haven.
Right. Unfortunate. But drown in the memories she does. And she kind of loses herself in them.
Kind of.
Yeah,
It says Malta Vestrit vanished like an apparition. She completely loses herself in these memories.
Right. Because there are so many of them.
100 other lives blossomed around her. Yeah.
There's just so many details and so many feelings, and none of it has been dulled down. It's all completely real and as though she's living it. And she has to remind herself that she is doing this for a purpose. She has to hold on to the idea that she needs to know how to open the door.
Mm-hmm. She's learning all of these things, but at the same time, Malta is, internally wailing. She can't do it like this, not in a flood that spared no detail, glossed over no emotion. It was too much, too much. She was neither elderling nor dragon. She was not meant to hold this much. She could not hold this much. It bled out of her, and she forgot as much as she held. She groped after the one important detail she must find and hold. The panels, the levers and wheels. That was the only important memory. She let go of all else. So, yeah, she's trying to desperately hold on to the information she needs, but this is what I was saying. Tintaglia just inundates her with literally everything she can find in the city.
Right.
And goes through hundreds of lives.
Well, I don't think it's in the city. I think it's this room specific.
Sure,
but
yeah.
Yes, it's literally everything that's ever happened. At least that the Elderlings have put in the stone. It does make me wonder, is this getting imprinted in the stone? Like, does she get to see the first people finding the logs? Does she get to see those memories? Are those kept? Or is it something innate within the Elderlings that creates the memories to be stored and therefore they can't be?
Don't know.
I don't know. So anyway, that is a thought that crossed my mind as this chapter is going on. But eventually Malta gets the information and she is sprawled on the ground in a cold puddle. She knew enough, and then she knew more. The days were wheeled out both before and behind her, time moving in both directions. So I think I really wanted to read that part because it goes back to the hypothesis you had about the prediction abilities of the serpents,
Yeah.
and that if you have every life you've ever lived as a memory, it begins to become,
You can see patterns.
way easier to notice the patterns and to know what will happen simply because you know the pattern of what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really interesting that here we have Malta. She is drowning in memories and she says time sprawls out both before and behind.
I do want to finish the rest of this passage because it's kind of important just for the setting and for the next scene as well.
Yeah.
She saw the blocks of the walls being set in place, and she saw the workmen desperately bringing in the dragon cradles. They pulled them on ropes, trundling them along on rollers. For outside the sky had blackened and the earth was shaking, and ash rained from the sky swift and thick as a black snowfall. Suddenly it all stopped. She had reached the setting of the first brick in one direction, and in the other the folk had fled or lay dying. She knew it all, and she knew nothing. Malta, get up. Which one was she? Why should she matter more than any other should? They all were, in the end, interchangeable, weren't they? Malta Vestrit, do you remember? Do you remember how to open the door? Move the body, sit up in it. Such a short, ungainly body, such a short life it had led. How stupid she was. Blink the eyes. The chamber is dark, but it is so simple to recall the chamber as it once was, full of light. The sun shone overhead and rainbowed down through the crystal panels. There, now, to work. The doors. So she's still kind of in a daze, but she has seen everything in this chamber from how it was built, and then we get a little glimpse of the great cataclysm that kind of ended Elderling life.
Lots of fire raining down, which does hold up the theory that people in this world have posed that there was a volcano eruption.
Yeah, lots of ash kind of raining down right now.
Yeah. So something happened.
So she's kind of in a daze, as I mentioned before. She knows the layout of the room now. She could recall little else of who she was or why she was here, but she recalled the opening of the door. Ordinarily, it would have been done by 4 strong men. She would have to do it alone. She's struggling to open up the panels. Her fingernails are starting to bend back. She kind of bangs on it and it kind of slides open. And then she breaks it off the hinges because it's so old. And now the panel is open. Again, the chamber's memory and her touch were at odds. So she remembers it as it was, but is touching and feeling and seeing now how it is, and it's completely different. It doesn't line up with those memories, so it's kind of creating a duality in her mind. She's trying to turn on these handles, and they're not budging very much. And she's finally, struggling so hard and bracing her feet against the wall, putting her whole body weight on it, and it finally does budge. It moved fractionally and then suddenly surrendered to her weight. There was a terrible rending sound from within the wall as she fell to the stone floor. She was half stunned for a bit, and then the crank.
Right. I will just back up a little bit. She goes to do the crank first, and then it is stuck, and she remembers, oh, yes, pull the lever.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the lever is pulled, then she goes for the crank.
Yeah, so she does the other lever then, and then goes for the crank, as I mentioned. Far overhead, something is groaning, and she's still falling and, hitting her knees and getting dazed, and Tintaglia is like, Malta, get up. I know, I will. The crank handle was mounted on a spoked wheel the size of a carriage wheel. It was made of metal. Damp earth was packed solidly around it. For an eternity, she dug at it. The soil was cold and wet and abrasive. It packed under her nails and sanded into her skin. Just try it, Tintaglia says. Obediently, she set both hands to the handle on the wheel. Her memory told her that 2 men should be on this crank and 2 on its partner. They would all have to be worked in synchronicity to turn them. So she can turn this one barely any, and then has to go back to the other one and turn that one barely anything, and then go back and forth and back and forth. And one of them works all right. The one that she's at with all the dirt packed around it is very difficult to turn.
Right. And she can't really get it much further than a few, not even a full turn.
Right, yeah, just like a notch. And then you have to go back to the other crank and turn that a notch.
But no, she can't get it past one notch. After she gets it past the notch on both sides, then it's stuck and she can't get it any further.
Miraculously, it turned, but not far. Far up the wall, something shifted. She left this crank and walked back to the other one. At least this one was not packed with earth. She seized the handle and turned it. It moved more smoothly than its partner, but not much farther. She walked back to the first one. It turned a notch. She went back to the other crank and turned it. As she turned it, she could hear something moving in the wall. There was a tiny shifting. She leaned on the crank and it moved again. So she's going back and forth a couple times, and it is moving, maybe a notch at a time. But it's taking a while, and ancient chains moved on pulleys, her memories whispered. She's kind of remembering how this was built. That was how she had designed it. Remember? Remember how it was designed. Remember how the whole dome was designed. And then suddenly, she's like, the whole side of this structure will give way if the door is moved. Only chance has kept it intact this long. It will give way, the earth will fall away from it, and the light will shine in. Continue. If you are wrong, you will be buried here and I along with you. I prefer that than to continue as I am. Turn the cranks, Malta. You promised. So potent a thing is a name. She snapped back to herself, a young woman in muddy clothes in the darkness. The proud young builder was gone, not even a memory, as dreams wisp away when the awakened one clutches at them. She took the crank in her hand and turned it another notch. So she's moved it multiple notches. Now this was the last movement that it would make. So she starts to open it, and then finally the old mechanisms just don't budge. And she says, it's jammed. I can't do it. I tried. I'm sorry. For a long instant, the dragon was silent. Then she commanded, get help. Your brother. I see him. You dominate him easily. Fetch him and 2 rods to use as levers. Go now. Now. And Malta's off walking before she can even kind of formulate a response.
Right.
Or reasons why not to.
Right. She knows that there are reasons not to. She just can't think about them right now. She needs to go get a lever.
She walked in light, remembered from another time. She dragged her weary steps up the broad stair and out the north door. As she walked, her fingers found the Jidzen strip and trailed along it. The corridor illuminated itself to guide her. A blink of her tired eyes, and it thronged with life. So once again, now she is reliving life in this city.
Right. And now that she, I guess, knows how to see the memories, it seems as though that has awakened more of them. Because before, when she walked, it was mostly empty except for whenever the earthquake happened. But now it's bustling with life.
She stumbled suddenly on fallen stone. She lost her touch on the wall and was plunged once more into darkness. This was her time, her life, and it was dark and dank and riddled with collapsed corridors and jammed doors. This fall of earth, her groping hands told her, completely blocked the corridor. She could not go that way. She touched the wall to get her bearings and instantly knew a better route that led to a closer exit. She turned her steps that way and hurried along. And there is a quake. She slammed to the floor. She lay still on the stone for a time afterwards, waiting for the echo shake that often followed, and nothing happened. There were sounds, shifting and grating sounds. None of them seemed to come from nearby. Cautiously, she came to her feet, touched the light strip. It was dim this time, and it flickered. Malta had to reach for the memories of how the corridor should be before she went on. And then she hears screams in the distance.
Yes.
She ignores them, as she ignored most of the memories, but she keeps hearing screams because it's getting closer as she's walking. A woman's voice cried out, "Please, please, the door is stuck. Get us out of here. Get us out before we die." As Malta's hands trailed past the door, she felt the vibration of the woman's pounding. More in curiosity than in answer to the plea, she set her shoulders to the door. "Pull," she shouted as she pushed on it. So Malta, this whole time, as she's hearing that screaming, is like, just another memory.
Right.
Like, why do I feel vibrations? That's curious. Maybe I should see what's in here.
Right. She mentions that the ghosts of this city, or rather, she refers to herself as a ghost because this is their city. These apparitions are walking through her. There's a dog that walks through her leg. She's not feeling any of this. And I think, especially because she's so tired, there's just not a lot. Like, she's not really fully thinking about what's happening. And she's kind of over it. She's been through a lot and she's very tired. And so to have this actual screaming, it's really hard to differentiate.
Right.
And yeah, it's kind of good, I guess, that she does meet somebody real. But the somebody real that she meets is Kiki and the Satrap.
Mm-hmm. Kiki rushes out as soon as the door is unjammed, bumps into him, and they go flying. And then she says, "Get up. Take us out of here. The wall has cracked and the mud is leaking in." Malta sits up and looks past her into the well-appointed chamber. The carpeted floor was being engulfed by a slow wave of mud. A crack in the wall was the source of it. Even as Malta stared at it, a little water suddenly bubbled through it. The mud began to flow faster, thinned by the water. Its passage ate at the wall. "The whole wall will give way soon," she observed with certainty. The pale young man glanced at it over his shoulder. "You are probably right." He looked down on her. "Your masters assured us we would be safe here, that no one and nothing could find me here. What is the good of my hiding from assassins only to be drowned in stinking mud?" Malta blinked. The elder phantasms faded. The satrap of Jamalia scowled down at her. "Well, don't just lie there. Get up and take us to your masters. They will feel my wrath." Kiki's thinking, like, she's not doing anything. She's useless. "Come on. I'll grab this lantern. Let's go this way. I think I know the way out."
Which, like, what do you mean you think you know the way out, Kiki? When have you ever been here?
Well, apparently they weren't being kept prisoner there because they said the door's jammed. Because if they were locked in there.
Yeah,
So maybe she did walk around and thinks that she remembers the way?
that's something that also confused me because I thought they weren't being kept prisoner, but they were being kept in a room for their own safety. And I don't know, it feels odd that they would close the door at all then. You know what I mean? If they don't have to have it. I guess privacy, but
yeah, if they convince the satrap that, like, yeah, assassins are out to get you, we're keeping you, away from everybody else for your safety, don't go wandering, they probably wouldn't.
I guess, touche. Yeah, I don't know. Also, though, I was wondering, why would you scream and yell like that? Like, how often are people coming down here to talk to them? I guess the reason I'm asking this is, do we think Kiki can hear the memories? And so here's like the faint whispers of music and people talking?
No idea. No clue.
Either way, they're out now, and Malta kind of watches them go.
And she thinks the satrap of Jamalia had been brought to Trehog for his own safety. She had not known that. Someone should have told her about it. Didn't he trust her? Meaning Reyn. She closed her eyes to try to think about it more clearly. She thought of going to sleep. Again, another big quake happens. The floor bucked, slapping her cheek. Down the hall where she sprawled, Kiki and the satrap screamed. The shrill sound did not scare Malta half so much as the deep rumbling from the chamber they had vacated. She scrambles to her feet, seizes the door, and dragged it scraping shut. Could a door hold back a collapsing hillside? She clutched at her head and is telling herself, take control. Please. She chose the moment and brought it to life around her. Chaos swirled past her. It might save them. She turned and ran. Ahead of her, she sees Kiki and the satrap running. Yells, "You're going the wrong way. Follow me." Snatches the lantern and says, "This way." They followed on her heels. Around them, phantoms shrieked thinly as they fled. Malta followed the flight of the Elderlings. If they had escaped their final cataclysm, perhaps she would as well. So she is summoning up the memory there. She's saying, take control, find the memory I need of their death, of their running away.
Right.
I will follow that memory so they can show me where the exits are.
Yeah. Which is actually really smart.
It is.
And I think, again, points to the fact that Malta must be pretty highly skilled. Like, I think she has to have some high level of skill to be able to naturally take control.
Elderling magic later.
True. But to be able to naturally take control like this is pretty impressive, especially because there are people that train their whole lives in the skill and can't do that. So I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting. And it's a really cool ending to a chapter, very cliffhangery.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when the next one is called Death of the City.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that one for sure. Yeah, interesting chapter. As we mentioned, it's mostly Malta.
Yes.
Little intermission with Jani of how they think that he's a baby and slowly drowning in the memories and losing his mind.
Right. And we learned that he is finally not being plagued by Tintaglia anymore. Which means that Tintaglia did keep her word even before she gave Malta her name.
Right.
She pretty immediately gave up Reyn, her control of Reyn's mind.
I have a question. So Bendir mentioned that they had found a mound in the swamp to further investigate because it's part of the city. Is that the roof that is uncovered for Tintaglia?
Ooh.
When they open up the door?
Maybe.
So I don't remember. But the only thing, like, it makes sense to me, but the only thing I don't think makes sense is that is the family's chamber. Wouldn't they have maps of where things go and where it should line up because they know entrances and they know other landmarks?
Well, I guess if there's no other place to go up from the entrance, it'd be way harder to map where exactly you're going.
True.
So,
but you'd think after generations they would make that their thing, you know?
I guess why would you need to know if you live in the trees? You don't use the ground, you know? You don't have to dig down. So, but yeah, you would think they would know. I think also it talks about how that's a second story, potentially a second story of a building.
Yeah.
And I guess the Rooster Chamber does have 2 stories because Malta has to fall down the stairs to get to
it's
floor.
a large chamber. Yeah.
But it seems to be on the same, like the top of the chamber seems to be on the same level as the rest of the city, which if it was that mound, it, you know.
Right.
Unless it's extra high because of the dome ceiling. I don't know. Could be though.
Yeah. I just have problems with the way that they deal with their city and excavation, I guess.
Okay, King Kenneth.
True. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have thoughts on how to excavate an ancient city and loot all the things.
Any archaeologists listening?
It belongs in a museum. Don't sell it for wealth.
Yeah, bring it to the British Museum instead.
Please let us know your thoughts on the chapter and if you have any theories about anything. Maybe the dragons do believe in gods. You can email us at isfitshappy@gmail.com, or you can message us on any of our social medias. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter /X, Threads, and on YouTube as well. Please leave comments, messages, whatever. We read them all. So thank you so much once again for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
So this week, we have some really interesting things brought to us by our listeners. The first of which we'll start with because it's quick. It's an email from Jonas, and it's about the scratching on the door. And Jonas posits that perhaps it's because of the they're not Elderlings, the Rainwilders' deformities. And says, with longer nails that even resemble claws, I would also scratch a door, I guess.
True.
Which, I guess, good point if they have these like weird claw-like nails.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely an option of why they could do it.
We also got a message on Facebook from listener Naomi saying that potentially the scratching is because of the construction of the door. So Naomi says that they picture that the houses / rooms in Treehog are woven, especially the ones higher up and that swing in the trees. In my mind, that would make knocking on a door an awkward thing to do because the doors aren't completely solid. I'm thinking the doors are wicker rather than pieces of wood, and therefore scratching is a scratching movement on the wicker, which makes sound but doesn't rock the room, which I kind of love the idea of. I think that's such an interesting way to think of how they're living in this tree city.
Yeah, I feel like maybe I've skimmed past descriptions of them, but I thought there were descriptions of like wood houses
I don't
in the
know.
trees. It could be wrong. Maybe they haven't described the doors or anything like that, and that would still make sense with Naomi's, theory here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would make sense to me that they cut down on the amount of wood that they have to use and try to get materials out where they can and make it as light as possible.
Right. And I like the idea that because it's not solid, and you're swinging in a tree, you don't really want to rock the room. So you're
Right.
trying to just make noise to alert somebody that you're there without doing anything to jeopardize their privacy and the solidity of the room.
Right. Yeah. The houses being woven would also add to the stability of it because during earthquakes, even though the trees sway, you don't want any of that housing to be rigid and kind of fall down.
Exactly. So thank you so much for that point of view, Naomi. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Jonas, for what you wrote in.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we have an email from listener Anna, who wrote in to talk a little bit about how wit is not represented in these books.
Yeah. Anna's been really liking our discussions and deep dives into how skill affects different things and like how we've talked about how intricately skill is woven into this story as well in this trilogy, but is kind of missing the wit side of it because there's not really much of a representation in these books here.
Right. And also, Anna points out how it's a little unrealistic to assume that there would be no witted people in this area. It's only specific to Buckkeep. Well, I guess not Buckkeep, the Duchies and Mountain Kingdom. It's a little odd that there wouldn't be other versions of that.
Yeah, and there could be, but Anna also says that she finds it hard to believe that that wouldn't be significant in this storyline.
Right.
Because either there is none or there are and they're just not represented in these books.
Yeah, and I guess, it would be interesting to know. I mean, we also know Chalced has witted people because that's where Burek is from.
Right.
So that's not that far away from where they are. In fact, it's their border country. So maybe Kyle's witted. I don't know. It is kind of sad that there isn't more representation. I think that's why I keep trying to grasp on the idea that working with the dragons is somehow related to wit. Because in my mind, I think I just am so sad that there is no wit representation. I'm trying to go for anything that could be that. But I don't know. Yeah, I wish there was more representation. Maybe there's some fisherman out there who is wit bonded with a dolphin.
Maybe that's why the next trilogy is pretty much, at least the first book, is all about the wit.
Yeah, could be.
With the piebalds.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, there is a decided lack of that. And, my thoughts are still serpents / dragons have a mix of the two. It's not quite skill. It's not quite wit. They use both. And so the link with the Liveship, as we discussed before, is similar in some ways to a wit bond as well.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah.
There's no real animals talked about in these books.
Yeah.
Besides the serpents.
Yeah, they don't even really have
and
pets.
Pigeons.
Yeah, pigeons, I guess. The pigeon people are witted to the pigeons.
Yeah.
No, but also there was a little fun question at the end that Anna gave us.
Ah, yes.
And that is, if we had to cast the following people in the live ships, who would they be casted as? Which role? And the people we have to choose from are Danny DeVito, Steve Buscemi, Whoopi Goldberg, and Lisa Kudrow.
Yeah. I have some ideas across all of the books, but putting them all into live ships is kind of hard.
All right, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm having a horrible name day. Kenneth's right-hand man.
Sorkor?
Sorkor is going to be Danny DeVito.
Is that because you see him as Smee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I think Danny DeVito would be great as Sorkor. I don't know. Maybe not. I would probably naturally pick a different person, but of the people that we have,
right.
I think he fits Sorkor. Steve Buscemi is a hard one, but I'm going with a crazy one.
Okay.
I'm going to make him the Satrap.
Okay.
I feel like he kind of has the right look.
Are you going for like whatever role, like whatever age you can kind of picture them, or?
I mean, maybe, because I guess he is a lot older now.
Because yeah, for me, it's hard because all of these people are in their 60s or 70s. So I'm trying to think of like where to fit him in.
Like a little bit younger.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking Steve Buscemi when he was in Spy Kids 2 in like 2009. I don't know. So when he's like in his 40s, which I guess is kind of still too old for the Satrap. He's like, but whatever. Older people play.
I was thinking Genghis for Steve Buscemi.
Ooh,
like the old sailor that's with kind of in the first chapter of Ship of Magic.
Okay.
The kind of goofy one that just kind of hangs around.
Yeah. All right. I like that. The next one, Whoopi Goldberg. I feel like I want her to be like Jani Kupris.
Yeah.
Or the other Reyn Wilder that Ronica deals with in the beginning. I can't think of it. Yeah, Cowlin. I feel like those would be really good roles because they're less serious.
A good one.
Yeah. But like still have serious aspects, but like I feel like Jani would be so good for Whoopi.
Yeah, I like that. I like that casting.
Thank you. And then finally, Lisa Kudrow.
I see when I didn't read it well enough the first time, and I'm like, oh, I could see her as a Patience. But that's not in this trilogy. So
I want to put her, maybe another controversial, Cirilla.
Maybe.
I feel like she could potentially do good in that.
I could almost see her as... Now, this would be like because I only really know Lisa Kudrow as Phoebe from Friends. So this is not a casting similar to that at all, but I could kind of see her as Lady Amber. Okay.
I was going to say that too. And then I was like, well, I don't know. I know her better from Easy A as the school counselor.
Okay, yeah.
So I know she can play more serious roles and kind of evil characters.
Yeah.
So,
but again, she's just like a bit old for Cirilla too, because Cirilla is
Cirilla's kind of young as well.
Well, the mid 30s to upper 40s. So I guess maybe work.
She could fit. I think we could retcon her in there. You know what? Hollywood changes ages all the time. I think a few changes in age is fine. But yeah, so that's what I immediately thought whenever I saw those names.
I don't think any of them are quite fit for Ronica.
No.
But I could also see Lisa Kudrow playing Kefria 30 years ago.
I could see that as well. Yeah. I think it'd be an interesting role for her to play. But
how old is she actually?
Probably only like 40s.
I was going to guess maybe close to 50.
She could be.
She's 60 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. So that's what we thought. Let us know if we're wrong.
Yeah, I could see. I don't know. The Danny DeVito one is very hard.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Low-key, I would also love to see him as Brashen, but...
I could see him as Sincure Falden, actually. Just kind of like grimy, greasy merchant. Here's my daughters.
Yes, I would... Oh my gosh, I would love that. Or...
It's Sincure Falden.
May I offer you an egg in this trying time? Or...
Some people call me the trash man.
Or we could... could you see him as... Oh, what's his name? The one that just died? Devad. Devad would start.
Ooh, I could.
Okay, but
I could.
he would be a fire Devad.
True. He would. He really would, actually.
There's actually quite a few that Danny DeVito. He's quite versatile.
Same with Steve Buscemi. He can kind of fit in anywhere, too.
We could get him in there.
I think Whoopi Goldberg would be good for either of those Rain Wilders. I don't know. It's hard to imagine. What other, like, out there actors? Where would Nick Cage fit in?
Nick Cage has got to be Paragon.
Oh, that would be really good, actually. I was thinking Nick Cage.
Kyle?
30 years ago, I was thinking Kenneth.
Ooh.
Or maybe not 30, like 15 years ago.
Okay.
It'd be like Kenneth.
Maybe I could see that, yeah.
Just over the top, but like also a little sinister.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone sees him as a hero.
He wants to steal the Declaration of Independence.
Yes, yeah. Cold Vivacia.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Fun exercise, though.
That is, yeah.
Let us know what you guys think about the casting and where you would put those people.
Yeah.
As always, reach out to us.
Yeah, we love hearing your thoughts and your questions, whether or not they have anything to do with the books or it's just a dream casting. We love hearing from you, and we'll talk to you guys next week.